ladies and gentlemen, a crass joke about moms and dads having sex, and as you saw, all hell broke loose. What started as a terribly offensive attempt at sounding cool has now triggered FIRs, police summons, industry boycotts, and even a possible parliamentary intervention. Question is this outrage justified, or has it spiraled into a full-blown mob trial? The crackdown on podcaster Ranveer Allahbadia and stand-up comic Samay Raina has been swift and severe. A parliamentary panel is reportedly considering summoning Allahabadia over concerns raised by MPs in Parliament. The I&B ministry has ordered YouTube to take down the controversial video, which was promptly complied with. FIRs have been lodged against both Allahabadia and comedian Samay Raina as far away as in Guwahati and Indore. Back in Mumbai, the local police has summoned them for questioning after turning up at Allahbadia's house this morning. From the NHRC to the NCW, everyone wants a piece of the action and is issuing summons, as if this is the only pressing human rights or women's safety issue. The All India Cine Workers Association has called for immediate arrests. The Mumbai Cyber Cell, meanwhile, has filed an FIR against each and every panelist that ever appeared on the 6 episodes of India's Got Latent. If this is not an overreaction, what is? Take a look at who said what today.
OTT प्लेटफॉर्म पर कोई भी सेंसर नहीं है, उनको दिशा नहीं है, उनके कंटेंट पे कुछ भी दिशा नहीं है, कुछ भी पॉलिटिकल के बारे में कुछ भी अनाप शनाप बातें करने की ये जो रिवाज चालू है, इसके ऊपर सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ने ध्यान देना चाहिए और सेंसर लगाना चाहिए। OTT प्लेटफॉर्म्स, सब पॉडकास्टर, उनके लिए सख्त कायदा बनाना चाहिए और उनके ऊपर तुरंत गुना दाखिल करना चाहिए। ये विषय ये सभागृह में मैं आपके सामने रखता हूं।
इन लोगों ने जो किया है सोच समझकर किया है, ये कंटेंट वायरल करने के लिए किया है, ये कंटेंट से अपना पैसा बनाने के लिए किया है और इसकी कुछ खामियाजा इनको भुगतना पड़ेगा। एंड आई हैव सेड आई विल रेज इट इन द स्टैंडिंग कमिटी सिंस आई एम अ मेंबर ऑफ दैट एंड एज आई वुड आल्सो से दैट the chairman of Rajya Sabha has been kind enough to allow me to raise this in the 0 hour today, and I shall raise this issue. And this is not just about this particular content. There are several such content creators who are thriving on these platforms and getting away with accountability.
I have always been a strong advocate who has stood for keeping the internet free, keeping it unregulated, and the creative community of India is very strong. It's a very strong economy. And keeping that area unregulated, allowing them to flourish, allowing them to strengthen without strangling them is, in my opinion, very, very important. And I think that whoever is working in these platforms, which are unregulated mediums, there should certainly be self-regulation. There can be an advisory from the government, where the government issues an advisory of do's and don't do's. But government getting into regulating social media, into regulating content creation, in my opinion, then will strangulate what is a growing area of our economy.
Now, keep in mind that Ranveer Allahbadia has already issued an unconditional apology. But that hasn't stopped the backlash. He has lost 142,000 social media subscribers, which is a significant dent in his online following. The controversial India's Got Latent video has been removed from YouTube, erasing any trace of the joke. Even his professional engagements are taking a hit. You know, singer BeerBiceps has already pulled out of a planned broadcast appearance with him. And now the film industry is turning its back, with the Cine Workers Association announcing a boycott. Question is, hasn't he already been punished enough for a provocative joke? So the big question, is this about accountability or selective outrage? When hate speeches and open calls to violence go unchecked, should a crash joke be made? Should a crash joke actually be met with the full might and weight of the law? My guest this evening, Tehseen Poonawala, is joining us on the broadcast. You all know him. He's a political analyst. Stuti Ghosh is a film critic. She's also an RJ. Sanjay Hegde is a senior advocate. Satyam Surana is a complainant in the case. Kasturi Shankar is an actor. She's joining us on the broadcast. Satyam Surana, since you're the complainant in the case, I'm going to start with you. You were on the show yesterday as well, and we all agree that Ranveer Allahbadia's utterances in that show were absolutely disgraceful and distasteful. We all agreed with that. But has the reaction to the outrage gone a bit too far? What will you do now? What do you want now? You can't hang the guy for a bad joke. You can't send him to jail. Because if you do, that will be dangerous. I would say he's paid the price for what he's done. He's lost online subscribers. The show has been pulled out. There are guests who are pulling out of his podcasts. हो गया उसको जितना punishment मिलना था.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show again. And let me be clear about it. This incident, whatever has happened, this crash joke or anything that Ranveer Allahbadia has spoken, this is a criminal act in the eyes of law. And that is why all these FIRs have been filed. And for any criminal act, the due process of law exists. So definitely nobody will be hanged in this case. But whatever the law says, whatever punishment the law stipulates for such a crime, the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita stipulates or the IT Act stipulates, that shall take place. And Ranveer Allahbadia, Samay Raina, or any other person who is subjected as an accused in this FIR will have to undergo the due criminal law procedure, and they will get their own chance to put their own put their defense in front of the courts of law. And the courts of law would then finally decide if this is really against morality or if this is obscene or if there was an overreaction. But whatever is happening in the courts of law, we should let that happen. We should let the law take its own course.
We should let the law take its own course, but this is not just the law. Everyone and their uncles have jumped into the case. Assam police ka kya lena dena with Ranveer Allahbadia? Was the show shot there? No. Indore police, complaint has been filed in Indore. NHRC has got into it. The NCW has also got into it. I mean, it seems like everyone wants, wants a slice of the action that is going on around Ranveer Allahbadia. Possibility to stay in the headlines.
See, we cannot allege that the NCW and the NHRC are doing their stuff to get into the headlines. They are statutory bodies, they are constitutional bodies. We do not need the NHRC to be into the headlines. They are doing their own work. We live in a country where there are multiple parallel jurisdictions of law for the same cause of action. So anybody who is hampered by the law has their own right and authority to proceed, and not only a right and authority, but even a duty to proceed in a particular way. The comments that were made on the show are not only against one particular person. They were not targeting just the contestant who was present in the show, but they have shattered the collective conscience of the society. These were extremely derogatory, offensive, abusive, and sexually explicit content against one of the basic social institutions of a society, that is a family. We cannot normalize talks of incest and sexualizing parental relations in a country under the garb of free speech.
Sanjay Hegde, but can you criminalize a joke, however terrible, bad or vulgar it is? What you see, I mean, here's the thing. The Mumbai Cyber Cell has not just gone and filed an FIR against Ranveer Allahbadia and Samay Raina, but all contestants and judges who have been part of the 6 episodes of the show so far. How does that lend itself to logic? How is that not an overreaction?
As far as bad jokes are concerned, my position is that they can't be criminalized, but they certainly can be elected or selected to high office. What are we bringing our country down into? Uncleocracy? You think that something is obscene, and so everybody gets down into a collective mob of illegal action, whatever jurisdiction you can invoke. At the end of the day, this was a pay show. You have to subscribe to the channel. If you don't like somebody's jokes, do not subscribe to the channel. Do not look at it. That's it. The answer to a speech is another speech. You think somebody's made a bad joke, you make a worse joke. That's how free speech operates. Unless it is hate speech, which denigrates a person on identity terms, or it incites violence. these kind of bad jokes or obscenity even is a very thin line. What is obscene in today may not be obscene tomorrow, and was certainly not obscene in a culture that has produced Konark, it has produced Khajuraho. What are we talking about? If you are talking about your glorious past, please go back to your glorious past of Khajuraho and Konark. Where is all your outrage at that point of time? So the point I seek to make is that Allahabadia may have made bad content. He may have even plagiarized his content. If you manage to ban Allahabadia and his likes from Indian YouTube, etc., people will simply watch them on foreign channels. That's all. The money that you could have got by taxing these influencers and YouTube personalities within India will simply flow out. You cannot prevent your children, or you cannot prevent people who want to access such content from accessing content anywhere in the world. They will just avoid Indian content. They will go to the rest of the world. So I think that this is the thin edge of the wedge. Under the garb of Allahabadia, it is an attempt to regulate YouTube, particularly for other speech, which the government or the whole moral universe of the right wing finds particularly offensive. Then once you put in the censor board for Allahabadia, it will also go into Ravish Kumar, it will go into the whole other universe as well.
But here's the point, Sanjay Hegde, it is not just the government that is talking about regulation. It is also the opposition that is talking about regulation and saying bring in guidelines, bring in laws. If that law comes, then God save free speech in this country, because anything the government finds offensive on social media, which is not exactly complimentary to them, will be taken down in the name of being vulgar or obscene or spreading fake news. Stuti Ghosh,
absolutely.
Ghosh, where do you stand on this? There is
against me if I talk about veg biryani.
I will file. That is hurting my sensibilities. You deserve to go to jail, and you deserve to not get bail if you call veg pulao. There's only veg pulao. I'm offended.
See, that's exactly my point.
Stuti Ghosh.
Anybody can find anything offensive.
Coming right after the biryani and pulao
I agree with you. Therefore, yeah. But do you find this entire talk of bans, Ranveer Allahbadia and Samay Raina, who is happily away in the US doing shows right now, being summoned by a parliamentary panel, then the NHRC and the NCW want to summon him as well. There are better things in this country to do. I mean, Ranveer Allahbadia was wrong. What he did was simply stupid. What Samay Raina does is simply stupid. But last I checked, stupidity wasn't illegal in this country. You can't send people to jail for a bad joke. How do you react to the reactions to what happened?
I want to start by saying that everything that happened on that show, be it Ranveer's comment or generally the format of Samay Raina's show, is not funny. And I think anyone in their right mind will say that the statement that was made was absolutely obnoxious. But like you asked, where's the joke? Well, here's the joke. Because these are two people who we call influencers, one of whom has been awarded by the Prime Minister. The other was brought into our living room and was part of a very popular show called Kaun Banega Crorepati and sat next to Mr. Bachchan. And he himself, in the promo that was cut, said, Mr. Bachchan, if you had seen my content, I don't think you would have agreed to this. So what's happening here is basically to distract us from the main issue. We have never seen political parties and politicians speak in unison when we hear of cases of violence against women, when we hear of hate speech. There are always versions and, explanations about it. But here it's so easy to suddenly pull back. You want their numbers and followers when you have an agenda that you want them to carry forward. So you have top bosses of the government or other influential people, even Bollywood celebrities who prioritize these shows and go on these shows because they know that the following and the command that they have is something that they can benefit from. And right now, the easiest thing to do is to go on this, this rampage, as they say, and say, oh, we must ban them and put them in jail. Whereas what you really need to do, and we as civil society need to do, is why is it that the collective following of Samay Raina and Ranveer Allahbadia is so huge? They say you are what you do when nobody is watching. There are people watching. They might be watching it on their phones, in their rooms, I'm sorry, in their bathrooms. And these are shows that have got these content creators money, sponsors, and they don't need to be accountable to anyone, because unlike you or me, Shreya, who work for an organization and therefore are answerable and fully aware of what we are saying when the camera and the mic is on, these are people who are literally on their own and they have followers backing them. Today, I don't think anyone has the right to say they must be banned or put in jail when we are the ones who have commented, liked, shared, and basically brought them to a place where today in mainstream news, we are discussing about them as if this country has no other issue. This is now is getting into the zone of the absurd. And I think what is really happening here is, like, I think one of our panelists said here, the internet, social media was free. We followed self-regulation, and this was where you could put out, what you felt was right with a certain degree of responsibility and conviction. And now the government, I think, has found the perfect way to ensure that changes, and now you will, you have the same kind of censor board and the same kind of rules that will apply. And so I don't know the future of content and what it's going to be, but to just end, what I want to say on a lighter note, the one person who will be thanking Ranveer Allahbadia right now is Udit Narayan. Because, this country, after 2 days of discussing all that he did, is now suddenly on to, this very ridiculous comment. And that's what we are doing. This is sensationalism, and it's just so convenient because this is taking away from.
But here's the point. What do we do, Stuti? What do we do, Stuti? You can, you can accuse us of having misplaced priorities, but what do you do if Parliament is debating it?
No, but the easiest
if the NHRC, the NCW, the Mumbai police, the Assam police, the Indore police all get involved.
Sure, that's getting into the absurd. Like I said, that clearly seems to be another agenda.
Kasturi Shankar.
Something.
Okay. Kasturi Shankar, is this the theatre of the absurd that is now playing out? We've all, we've all expressed extreme distaste to what was said, right? All of us agree it was wrong, it was vulgar, it was stupid, it was obscene. But now it seems that, the entire world will be happy, or at least Ranveer Allahbadia's critics will be happy only if he's hanged. You can't hang the guy for a poor joke or send him to jail. But that's what the clamour seems to be for.
Yeah, Shreya, I don't know how many people on this panel actually ended up watching the entire show. It was performed in front of a live audience. I'm not sure how many people here actually watched the show or are talking on the basis of what news they gathered from social media and the news. So I ended up having to watch this show because I had never watched an Allahabadia show before, and my daughter, who's 18 years old, said something about this before it became an issue. And she said, did you even see this? Can you even believe it? I mean, this is for somebody who has been fed on the kind of drivel that these people have made money out of for several years. And we have all given it a long rope. This country does understand freedom of expression. We don't take two young chaps who are pushing boundaries to task every day. It doesn't happen. But they have pushed it so far that one day the latent outrage has pent up. This is not a witch hunt. What Parliament did was not a witch hunt. What Parliament did was represent its constituents. Me, parents like me with influenceable children are the people my representatives are talking for, speaking up for in Parliament. So do not at any point think it was an overreach. It was, in fact, a very delayed reaction to something that has been snowballing and snowballing. Nobody paid heed to it when they got away with so many. That's what all of you are saying. You're saying, they crack jokes like this forever. So what's the outrage now? That's the whole point. They crack jokes like this forever and we let it go. There's a limit to being perverted. Freedom of expression should not be confused for freedom of obscene perversion. It's clear you haven't seen the episode because you clearly did not watch the part where Allahabadia, forget the horribly incestuous question that he put to a completely clueless contestant who absolutely did not, you should have seen the reaction of the contestant. He was not consenting to that kind of sexual assault. But before that, he says, I will offer you 2 crores to do something sexual to my genitalia. That is a criminal offense, regardless of where it is done. And you're talking about Assam and Indore. I'm sitting in Hyderabad. People in South India who had never heard of Samay Raina have been subjected to this now because this is headlines for the past 2 days. We want this to be an example and a lesson. Is he making a are we making a scapegoat out of Samay Raina? No. Samay Raina and Allahabadia have made themselves examples by talking into it. They didn't walk into it. They have talked themselves into their situation today. If this is not punished today, it will not be a warning. I shared, just for an example, I shared and reshared a picture of Kanye West's girlfriend wearing a sheer dress. It was promptly taken down by Instagram saying it's against their rules. The entire India Gets Latent show is against the rules of YouTube. They have not seen it before. They have seen it now. It's every episode has offensive activity. The police did not see it before. They have seen it now. Action had not been taken about it before. It will be taken now. That you cannot question why they didn't do it before. You cannot question why they have not taken action on violence and more severe crimes. That should be done.
Okay, so essentially your argument is, ठीक है Kasturi, I understand your argument. You are saying you need to make an example out of these 2 men. Tehseen Poonawala, come in here. As a parent, Kasturi is outraged. She says, had you watched the entire thing? And the part she's talking about, I've actually seen it. This is not the sort of thing our kids should be exposed to. Go ahead, respond to what Kasturi is saying. She's making some very fine points here.
Good evening, Shreya. Thank you so much for having me on the show. At the onset, all of us on this panel agree that content was crass. Ranveer agrees that content was crass. He asked for that content to be taken down. He's got punished. He's lost his subscribers. He's lost whatever following he had. He's lost. Look, I don't do shows when people talk in between. I don't do shows and people talk in between. So if I give you respect, you give me respect. Let's not talk. Let's not do that.
Just a minute. Here are the rules of engagement, ladies and gentlemen. We'll let Tehseen finish and then you can come in. Tehseen, go ahead.
If you're preaching morality, let's have morality on the show. Thank you. The fact of the matter is, kudos to Parliament. Kudos to Parliament. They're united today on this issue, on a social media issue. A convicted rapist, every time there's an election in a state, is out. Nobody in Parliament, the government or opposition, chooses to react on it. A wannabe politician who's also masquerading as a poet wished death for Saif Ali Khan's kids. Just because he didn't use abusive language, South India and North India were not outraged about it. I am not making this one versus the other. Free speech ends where violence begins. Sanjay was brilliant when he said that, and that's how it works. I cannot wish death. Sar tan se juda is hate speech. Desh ke gaddaro ko is not free speech, is hate speech. Cracking a bad joke is just that, bad joke. And the punishment to it is self-censorship, self-regulation. That isn't violence. Ranveer cracked a bad joke. It may have offended somebody's sensibilities, but it didn't cause violence. Violence done by people who are out and campaigning is what we should be offended to. If you don't like a bad joke, don't watch it. You don't like Mirror Now, change the channel. You don't like a movie, walk out of the theater. You don't like a book, shut it and stop reading it. But burning down books, breaking art galleries, threatening the Mirror Now studio, wanting to jail people for bad jokes, that is sign of fascism. That isn't democracy. Now let's come to what is the reality. The reality is that India is the third largest consumer of porn. Whose morality are we talking about? 30 years ago, 100 years ago, wonderful women like you, Shreya, and Stuti would be punished if your arms were shown. Showing arms or showing below your ankles was immoral. Whose morality? 10 years ago, 15 years ago, my best friend who's homosexual would be considered illegal, criminal, because he's homosexual. Whose morality are we talking about? Morality is subjective. Yes, if your child saw it, if you can't control the content what your child saw, why do you expect the government to control the content what your child saw? Regulations must be self-driven. Maybe you can have regulations that kids below the age of 16 are not on social media. We can discuss that. But you can't have the government being a nanny when you can't be a nanny. Let me ask you one fundamental question, and that is important. Today, in most of these singers across the states, especially in states like Punjab, they talk about drugs and violence. They are being felicitated by political parties, even getting big awards. That's violence. Why? There are makers who make soft porn. They are in all government parties. They are wooed by all political parties. Why? Why is that not immoral? Because your child saw that? There are lots of ways to prevent your child from seeing this. This was a ticketed show for adults only, for a subscriber base. It was a show that marketed dark humor. You don't like dark humor? Please shut up and get out. Don't watch it. I think it's filth. I didn't want to watch it. But you can't impose conditions on a ticketed show, which is subscriber based, which is adult only, which says that it's a show for dark humor. Okay. Now you're offended about it. Why? And you're seriously not offended about a convicted rapist and murderer who's out every election? And you're not offended about a wannabe poet come politician wishing death on an innocent child? You're outraged about this? Sure, ban Allahabadia, may his show not do well. I don't care. But to put him in jail, to have the government be a nanny is extremely scary, extremely scary.
Okay. I will let Kasturi respond as promised. Kasturi, go ahead.
A quick rebuttal. Yeah, Tehseen Poonawalla, life is not, we all live in India, and I'm very, I respect your sentiments, which are wonderful for countries that are not India. This is a country where we are a nanny state. We do have to recognize that we do have rules about these things that you talked about. Freedom of expression, people eve teasing in bus stops are also making crass jokes. That's freedom of expression. Unfortunately, we have rules against that. We have rules which made sure that a movie like Da Vinci Code, which was seen across the world, which won awards across the world, which was nominated for Academy Awards, was banned in India. We had a Satanic Verses, a book was banned in India. So this is not the same environment. We cannot, this is not apples to apples. I'm actually for the YouTube show to go on, but it violates the YouTube show rules itself. And my child is above the age of 18, lives outside of India. She still was surprised that this was coming from India, and it was making a very bad dent into what she wanted to project about India.
Mr. Hegde.
I've just been called non-Indian. Sorry.
Hegde's eyes widen. I will give you 20 seconds to tell us why your eyes widened, Mr. Hegde, and then we'll wrap the show.
No, I'm quite reminded of the obscenity test during Lady Chatterley's Lover, and the prosecuting counsel, with maybe Kasturi's enthusiasm, said, is this a book that you would want your servants to read? Look, we cannot impose our morality on others. You may find your sense of morality being offended. Fine, don't watch. Shut things up. But the great her daughter was watching this from outside India. Do you want Indians to watch non-Indian content? You can't regulate non-Indian content. Why do you prevent Indians from earning money doing exactly the same thing?
Okay.
Is this legal or illegal under the prevailing
I think
Indian
all of
laws?
you have...
That is the question. And that is a question
You know,
that the courts
you
will
have
decide
all-
on.
It's
This is not
perfectly
about
legal.
morality.
If I can just be allowed to come in.
For the moment, under the law, perfectly legal. Anyhow, so says the lawyer. I wanted your views in. I've got your views in. Thank you very much. You know, it's a debate that has the country split down the middle. But if you ask me, ab thoda zyada ho raha hai, as they say in Hindi. You didn't like what Ranveer Allahbadia said, neither did I. It was just stupid. It was vulgar. But you can't hang the guy. You can't put him behind bars. You can't have 500 FIRs registered against him, and the parliament wanting to summon him, and the NCW wanting to summon him, and the NHRC also wanting to summon him. We'll leave it there for the moment. Sanjay Hegde, thank you very much. Stuti Ghosh, good to have you on the show. Tehseen, thank you very much. Thank you to Satyam Surana as well, complainant in the show. And Kasturi Shankar, thank you. Good to get your views as well. Ladies and gentlemen, slipping into a quick break on the show. Urban Debate continues. Do stay with us.